Um, you've been through a lot by now, even though Como is a young company, but you've been through a lot, and you also have a lot of experience from the VC world. Can you give us, let's say, 5 tips for startup founders for um, raising capital, reaching out to investors, maintaining their relationship? By the way, I forgot to mention, I'm getting uh, your updates, your investor updates, and
Oh
they are
yeah.
awesome. They are awesome. So maybe you want to say a word about that too. But can you give us five
Yeah.
tips?
So that I totally forgot about that, and that's a great point. So first off, like, we send a fundraising update specifically to all of the people that I've come across that have basically said that they would, make an intro or have made an intro. And essentially it's an easy way. It does two things. It's an easy way of keeping everybody on the same page about like where you stand with fundraising, like who you've talked to and then who you want to talk to. And secondly, like, and I learned this trick, I should say, from another founder. Like, I was told, and it's true, like we have a CC email and a BCC email, but like on this email, like I literally CC 100 founders, mostly young people, because the older people don't want to get quote unquote spammed. Because it builds like this credibility and social proofing where all of a sudden those founders that said that they were going to make intros that maybe have been dragging their feet, they see like all these other founders and you tag them out in email. You're like, thanks, Caben, for this intro, and thanks, Lee, for
Yeah,
this intro.
that's
And
great. I
and
saw that.
literally,
Yeah.
and we showed them and we're like, by the way, that intro you made led to that, the VC fund that just came in this round, like that was from a warm intro. And so that's all to say that was a really efficient way for me as a founder to build social proofing and show people like, hey, like I'm talking to these amazing VCs, like we're getting the meetings, let's keep it up, and like we're closing capital. So that's one update that I think has been great. Just like in terms of if you don't have shame, which at this point, that's maybe tip number 2, to have no shame. That's a great way to go about it. I think that, like kind of what we talked about, right? Having a strategy of like volume versus, also just having like a very high touch strategy of like who are your dream investors, like who do you really want to go after and why, is really sound. And maybe before that, a good tip would say, get organized, like have everything in one place where you're like, who are get your investor list together, like flag those funds that you want to talk to, and also like be comfortable pitching either other founders or like those maybe like, let's call them in your mind tier 2 or tier 3 funds first. So you can kind of get the growing pains out of pitching, because you might think you're going to be good when you just start. If you think, I think I'm a very salesy person. Like I thought I'd be a good like B2B SaaS salesperson in another life or role. You don't learn how to do any of this until you do it. Like you have to go do it and like learn from the mistakes you're going to make, and then save those big pitches for when you feel confident of like, okay, I know what to do and what to say and where to go. Apart from that, I mean, investor updates, like we send our current investors an update every month. It's pretty straightforward, and it's like, just keeping them in the loop. We send prospective investors an update maybe every 3 months to 6 months. Like it just depends. Like obviously a lot of them are like, oh, great founders always keep us posted and whatever. And like, I don't know. The truth is like they get a ton of those, and ultimately like I like that they don't necessarily always know what's going on in my company or like where we're at, because like I want them to be thinking about us. It's like you want to be like that ex-girlfriend, where you're like, I know you're checking my Instagram page once in a while to see how things are going. So it's like a light touch of like, how do you give them just enough info to make them want to come back and maybe have a meeting? And if not, they probably were never going to have a meeting with you again anyways. And you're just putting out information that you maybe don't need to, that could get to your competitors or whatever. So that one, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I'm like, keep them posted. And then when you go into the next round, if they have somebody that said, we're along for the next round, then go back into re-engagement mode. I will say, I hate to say it, but like the truth is like in fundraising nowadays, it's like always signal positive. Like, look, I'm a founder. I knew this was going to happen. It's the journey. Like there's tons of things that we need to improve and fix. There are tons of things that are going wrong. And there's always a fire, and there's always a lot of things where you want to be transparent and tell your investors and everybody else, hey, this is what we learned and this is how we're going to improve. And that's actually what happens at Kommu. When you're talking to your investors, when you're talking to everybody else, when you're going out there, you have to talk about all the amazing stuff, and you have to exude confidence. Like even though it's a really valuable thing to be transparent, and that's who I am as a person, this game is a signaling game. And you need to signal that you are a winner and that you're going to, dominate and all that stuff. So that's that's a lesson I learned the hard way, where I thought like it's cool to talk about what isn't working and like what you learned. It's cool to do that internally and with your company. Investors are psychologically driven at this stage, and your job is to make them feel like you are going to be the next hottest, greatest thing ever, and that they're right about you.